Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of Bolton Planning Committee. The agenda has been circulated and we will deal with the items in order. Can I remind members, please, that if you wish to speak, to indicate in the chat box, and that cameras and microphones should remain off unless and until invited to speak. I will explain in more detail the manner in which we deal with planning applications when we come to that item on the agenda. But item 1, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest on this item? Thank you. I've got one from Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
What is your interest, Councillor Wright?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a declaration of interest on application 09862/20, as I am a tenant of Irwell Valley Housing Association, which is one of the social housing providers mentioned, but I have no connection with this application, and therefore I feel it won't affect me from taking part in this debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll note that down. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wright. Item 2 on the agenda.
I am a tenant of Irwell Valley Housing Association.
Sorry, don't want to have the microphone on. Item 2, urgent business. Nothing has been brought to my attention.
No, Chair.
Thank you. Item 3, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we've got an apology today from Councillor Allen, but Councillor Fletcher is here in his place. We've also got an apology from Councillor Wilkinson, but he's not managed to send a deputy.
Thank you. Item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. These have been circulated. Someone move them as a correct record.
Move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hornby. Seconded.
Second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. I see no dissent on that.
Agreed.
Thank you. Come then to item 5, planning applications. We have just the one application before us this afternoon, reference 09862/20, Horwich Local Works, the Industrial Estate, and Mrs. Williams, I think, is going to introduce this item. The procedure will be for the benefit of Mr. Whittle, who I think knows the process, but Mr. Caldwell, sorry, whom I welcome to the meeting. The process will be that Mrs. Williams will introduce the item. I will then invite Mr. Whittle as an objector to speak for up to 3 minutes and take any questions from members of the committee. Mr. Caldwell then, as a supporter, will invite you to speak for up to 3 minutes and again take any questions that members of the committee may have. I will then invite members of the committee who wish to ask questions of officers to do so before opening the item up for debate. So could I invite Helen Williams, please, to
Thank you, Chair. The proposed development is the next proposed phase of the wider Rivington Chase development, which has permission for up to 1,700 dwellings. The 116 dwellings proposed are all proposed as affordable units, with the sites being developed for Bolton at Home and Irwell Valley Homes. The dwellings comprise 2 apartment buildings and 38 townhouses. The applicant has worked with the Council's Design and Conservation Officer in amending the scheme. Members will note within both the officer's report and within the schedule of supplementary information that concerns have been raised by objectors with regards to the compliance of this solely residential proposal with the outline permission and a perceived resultant loss of the envisioned community facilities on the site. Further correspondence from Horwich Heritage was received last night in response to the last email from officers, which was unfortunately too late to make this schedule of supplementary information. Horwich Heritage believe that it is necessary for the councils to secure the promises made by Blue Mantle for the community facilities, and that the council is underestimating the community facilities that are required for a population of this size. The application site forms the southwestern portion of the allocated heritage core, not the entire heritage core area. The heritage core is designated as a mixed-use zone within the heart of Rivington Chase. Residential development is permitted, provided that it adheres to the core design principles within the approved design and access statement. Whilst indicative initial plans for Rivington Chase illustrated that the application site could accommodate community uses in and around the former industrial buildings, these buildings have since been demolished to make way for the Spine Road. Plans have since progressed, and it is now envisioned that the community uses would be better located to the east of the application site, focused in and around the retained millwrights and pattern makers shop buildings. Plans presented to the local press by the landowner include the conversion of these buildings for community uses and the introduction of a public square and heritage parks. Officers therefore do not consider that the proposed development would jeopardise or water down the the community and retail uses envisioned within the heritage core, only moving them further eastwards within the development. Indeed, the provision of 116 affordable homes would make a significant contribution in meeting the local housing need, and as reported within the schedule of supplementary information, would help progress the delivery of the Spine Road. It is considered that these benefits, as well as those listed within the officer's report, should carry substantial planning weight in the determination of this decision. Also, for the reasons discussed within the officer's report, it is considered that the development fully accords with the core design principles of the heritage core, and that it would have less than substantial harm to the significance of the local works conservation area. Members are recommended to delegate the decision to the director to allow for the signing of the proposed supplementary section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams, for that. Can I now invite Mr. Whittle, please, as the objector, to speak? I'll remind you that you have 3 minutes to address the committee, after which, if members have any questions, we'll invite you to take the questions, please. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. As many of you will know, I've been involved with the Local Works redevelopment project since it first started over 10 years ago, and this has been hard going. The big breakthrough came with the approval of a master plan 5 years ago, which included at its heart a heritage core made up of 4 retained Local Works buildings and space to build community facilities. This was key to creating a vibrant, self-contained village community of some 5,000 residents that Horwich could be proud of. Today we are fighting for the very heart and soul of the heritage core as you consider whether it is appropriate to build 116 houses and apartments right in the middle of it. Affordable housing is of course to be commended as part of the housing mix at Rivington Chase, but it doesn't have to be here. It could be on any surrounding site from the heritage core, whereas there is only one area allocated on the master plan for community facilities, and this is it. Recognising the strong feeling about this, the developers at the last minute presented a scheme for a limited range of community facilities to be accommodated in the adjoining Millwrights pattern shop. But, welcome as it is, particularly as it contains a heritage centre and historic Horwich locos, this scheme has no planning or legal status and could be just wishful thinking or at worst a ploy, particularly as the developers have previously said that restoration of the building would cost over £4 million and would not be viable. Remember what happened to the erecting shop. In my opinion, it will be too great a risk for this committee to approve the housing scheme without a legal agreement linked to the delivery of the Millwrights pattern shop proposals. I also think the council and developers have seriously underestimated the facilities required to serve a population of 5,000. These future residents deserve a village centre which can act as a genuine community focus, filled with facilities like a primary school, community centre, variety of local shops, cafes and other leisure uses grouped around a village green. If the centre of the heritage core is a housing site, where will these facilities go? There is nowhere else allocated on the master plan. The result will be one massive housing estate with the residents having to drive off-site for even the most basic requirements. Imagine the impact that would have on Chorley New Road. I therefore believe that the main site developer, Blue Mantle, has an obligation to state specifically where these facilities are going to go before this housing application is approved. I therefore urge you to refuse this application, or at least defer a decision until the two issues of a legal agreement for the Millwright pattern shop and the future location of all the necessary community facilities have been resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whittle. I have a question from Councillor Howard, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Whittle, just want to ask a bit more about, if I hone in first on what's described in the objections as a concern about the loss of a central green area at this site. However, this application, I read all the pages, it does say that the overall master plan includes, you've already talked about it, the transformation of Millwright's shop. But of course, it also tells us that within the core, Blue Mantle do propose to have a community plaza, landscape memorial park. These are outside of this application. Of course, we're reminded about park at the side of both of the proposals for the apartments, if you remember, and then also yes, about Memorial Park as well. So what's your view, please? Have you got anything else you want to say about the fact that there are proposals, also pocket parks as well? Sorry if I didn't say that already. I mean, is this not, it might be outside of this application, but is your view not that that is a good offer for the community? That speaks to me about a lot of community activity. I've got a second question in a minute. Thank you.
Right, yes. As I said, I welcome what is proposed for the Millwrights and pattern shop. I just think that for full development of 5,000 people, there isn't enough there to provide all the facilities in the future that I listed. Primary school, community centre, local shops, cafes, other leisure uses, all grouped around a central village green or space. Now, that was always envisaged to be on the site of the housing application. So my point is, if housing replaces this and we are deficient in facilities, where will they go? And of course, the other point I made was there is no guarantee at this point in time, with all the best intentions maybe, that the Millwrights and pattern shop will be developed in this way. I mean, after all, there's no one living on the site at the moment, so the only demand for these facilities has to come from off-site.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask you whether you're still able to be active in what I believe is a Rivington Chase or Horwich Local Works liaison committee? Has that been active, and is that ongoing, where not just yourselves but local residents can also contribute to discussion about these matters, about planning and applications and so on?
Well, nothing has happened, of course, for the last 12 months and more because of the pandemic. It's difficult to recall when the last meeting was, but certainly these proposals have never been discussed at a liaison committee, so the first I and others heard about them was via the local press.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Whittle.
Thank you. Hello?
Hi, Councillor Walsh, are you there?
Sorry, can I invite Mr. Caldwell, please, now to speak? You've got 3 minutes, Mr. Caldwell, to address committee and then take any questions. Mr. Caldwell.
Hello, Chair. Apologies, I'm on my mobile at the moment. Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me the time to speak. We, as Blue Mantle, have been involved in the LOCO works for over 25 years. We're fully committed to the development of it, and we're fully committed to the development of the heritage core. The scheme has evolved since the early days, and I think what has happened since the Spine Road consent was granted is that we have looked again at the original proposals for the heritage core with our architects, Cass Associates, and have realised that actually the heritage core in itself can be integrated with the open space that sits on the other side of the Spine Road, and because of that can deliver far more, well, an equal amount, if not far more, than was originally proposed. That includes the memorial parks that have been discussed previously. It includes the community uses that have been mentioned, and it includes, because of the integration of the open space with it, natural activities in the natural world, such as indicatively locally equipped areas of play, looking at the reservoir that was part of the local works, and so on. We have started the consultation on these proposals, and there was actually a meeting of the liaison committee, the Horwich Works liaison committee, several weeks ago, at which we tabled these plans. Those plans have been published, have been made public in the local press. They're on our website, and we are already responding to community feedback on those. So for us, this is the start of the consultation process. Critically, because of that consultation process, we want to get it right. We want to respond to what the local community is saying to us. That's going to take time. We also need to ensure at the end of the day that the scheme that we're proposing in terms of the uses that go into the heritage core building are deliverable. And because of that, I think the objector made a very valid point. We need people living on the site as soon as possible to give the credibility so that those end users will commit to enable us to refurbish the heritage core. So summing up for me, we're on the start of the consultation process, and we are absolutely committed to see the heritage core being delivered alongside the Lane End scheme with the open space over the coming in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. I've got questions, please, from Councillor Peel.
Thanks, Chair. Just going back to the specific points made by Mr. Whittle, question to Mr. Caldwell. Mr. Whittle specifically used the term guarantees 3 or 4 times as part of his submission, and then answering the question from Councillor Howarth. So I suppose from the committee's point of view, can you outline to us, you said Blue Mantle is absolutely committed to the heritage core and the other community facilities, but being committed is one thing. What are the actual guarantees? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is taking the other substantial point from Mr. Whittle. He makes a very valid argument, which is a potential population of 5,000 people over the years, and the real opportunity to create a sustainable community there, meaning minimum travel off-site if community, retail, education and health facilities are on site. So could you give us the current thinking from Blue Mantle in terms of why it may be argued that that opportunity to create a sustainable community isn't being grasped to the full? Thanks, Chair.
Mr. Caldwell, please.
Dealing with those points in reverse order, if I may. In terms of the sustainability, that is at the heart of what we're proposing, and I would welcome comments back in terms of the indicative plans that have been published. And as I said, we have started that consultation process on. I think the really exciting thing for me, actually, in terms of the evolution of the overall scheme's design and the heritage core's design, is, as I said, that integration with the open space. And those open space plans, which are clearly not part of this application, but are available, and as I said, we are now consulting on, include significantly more open space than was originally ever envisaged to be part of the heritage core, and that actually links the northern part of the scheme, obviously closer to the Horwich Town Centre, down to Middlebrook with a network of footpaths and cycleways. And I think actually leading on from that, for me, the affordable housing point being at the heart of the scheme is a fundamental thing. I don't think affordable housing should be something that's tucked away in a corner. I think the fact that we're actually enabled, due to these plans, to see it delivered at the heart of the scheme, adjacent to the new heritage core and that open space, and linked into the heritage features like the Memorial Park, is a great thing. Turning to the second question in terms of the commitments, I am not talking about the Lane End planning application here, because that is an application in its own right. That sits under the outline consent that was granted for the whole site many years ago. Likewise, our proposals for the heritage core and the open space will come forward with their own reserved matters application in due course, and the whole site is governed by an overarching section 106, which all the landowners have already signed up to. So in terms of the deliverability of the heritage core moving forward, it's part of that outline consent and the existing section 106. I would, again, not being a planning expert, I think I would refer any detailed comments on that either back to the case officer, or I believe Mr. Halliwell from Paddock Johnson, who is the applicant's architect, is potentially also on the call.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Do you have a further question, Councillor Peel? No, in that case,
No,
Councillor Howard. Right, Councillor Howard, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just need to ask Mr. Caldwell or Mr. Halliwell about trees and about windows. And so, looking at the diagrams you sent, thank you. It's clear to me that certainly the two apartment blocks, also the houses, are set off really well by the diagrams show green trees and a number of them. And I want to find out from you whether, when they get planted, I know you're going to agree a landscape plan with council officers, but are you going to be able to come to an agreement? Is there anything that can be done where we don't have to have trees, if you like, that are looking sort of, that they're just budding and scrawny for a number of years because they're growing? Is there any way that the wonderful design that you've shown us can in some way, can we have green leaf in some way from the start? Is that possible? That's the first question on trees, if either of you could speak to that for me.
Hello, it's Mr. Caldwell here again. I can't answer that detailed question on the Lane End application itself because I'm not au fait with the detail. So I would have to say either Mr. Halliwell from Paddock Johnson needs to reply, or it needs to be picked up by the case officer.
Fair enough. I'm not sure that we do have this Mr. Halliwell on the call. I hope you can hear me okay, Mr. Caldwell. I'm not sure that we do have Mr. Halliwell, so I may need to ask that in answer questions.
As we wouldn't normally have a second speaker on the application.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that guidance, Chair. Again, probably just some guidance. It might be a quick one then to Mr. Caldwell. Would you prefer it if I put my question on glazed windows and so on, perhaps to our council officers, to our planning officers instead then? It's a similar type of question, isn't it, about the planning detail?
Yes, I think that would be appropriate if that's acceptable.
Right.
Yes, okay, thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. There are no further questions to you at this point. I've now got a question from Councillor Peel, first of all, to officers.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose it's the same question that I asked Mr. Caldwell in terms of what a layperson would describe as a guarantee. I understand the outline permission. Quite a lot of us are familiar with that from a number of years ago, that as a collective 106 agreement. I suppose from Mr. Whittle is experienced in these matters, but he has expressed some concern. So I suppose from people who are less experienced in planning matters, they may well not understand, because this development, huge development, could actually be done piecemeal, section by section in terms of the details. So we really need a firmer answer really to that. I suppose what is a collective 106 for the guarantees for what has actually been promised for this new community as it's developed over the years, in particular Heritage Core, the community and retail uses within the site. In addition, what is the current thinking of the council in terms of why they would prefer primary school provision off-site rather than on-site? Thanks, Chair.
Mrs. Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Peel. Okay, I'll try to explain as best as I can. With regards to the outline permission, if you have a look at page 20, you'll notice that within the history section, it lists what we approved under the outline permission, and you'll see that the outline was in two parts. So it's Part A and Part B. Part A is the relevant part here. It's granted actually full planning permission for the change of use of those buildings that are to be retained in the Heritage Core to be converted to a variety of uses. So with the buildings that are on the site adjacent, which Mark Caldwell has spoken to you about, they already have planning permission for a variety of uses. So anything, if the council was to receive an application for that adjacent site that was contrary to, well, not contrary, was different, was proposing something different, they would require further planning permission, and the officers would be able to at that point consider whether or not whether that proposal would comply with the previous outline permission and all the supplementary guidance and the planning policies regarding Rivington Chase. So in theory, it's likely, if anything other than a community use and retail, etc., those uses that were listed in the outline permission were proposed, it's highly unlikely that the council would be supportive of those, because it would be contrary to the master plan for the area. It's also maybe worth just mentioning that the stores building, which is to the north of this application site, also already has full planning permission for the change of use for a variety of community uses, and that is an extant permission. I think there was also a question from Councillor Peel the off-site primary contributions, why it's off-site rather than on-site. I think that was a decision that was made prior to the hybrid application being approved. That would be preferable to the council that existing primary schools within the area were extended, and certainly, as you will be aware, the nearest primary school, which is Chorley New Road Primary School, has already been extended in anticipation that there will be an increase in local kids from this development. And the existing section 106 still requires all developments within the site to come further to local schools within the area. So there is a requirement for each phase to contribute, I can't remember, sorry, off the top of my head what amount, but a certain amount of money per dwelling. I hope that answers your question as much, well, so as much as I can guarantee that the other site will come forward. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Howard, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Helen, there's a fair bit of red brick in the two apartment buildings, and of course the diagrams show us trees that are going to be included, and that looks very nice against all the buildings, all the houses and the apartments that we're talking about today. I'm just trying to find out, when you agree a landscaping plan, is there anything that can be done to prevent you know, a good period of time where trees can end up just budding and scrawny and don't have that lovely green attractiveness to them? Is there anything that can be done around agreement on landscaping where you get more green from the beginning? Is there anything you can tell me on that?
So I'm just waiting to go live. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, with regards to the landscaping, yes, we can certainly look at asking the applicant to plant more mature trees, so that will ensure that that they've got more chance of surviving. We've also could ask for a mixture of both deciduous and evergreen trees within the scheme, so that we would get green leaves throughout the year in a variety of places within the scheme. Condition, I think it's condition 6 is the suggested landscaping scheme. We could include a bit more wording within that condition to ensure that those points are picked up.
I'd be grateful. It will be up to members as well to give views. May I just ask you also, it's paragraph 48, and it talks about the windows of the apartments, and it reminds us that so this is on the side where their view is the link road, the 2 apartment blocks, and it's condition 5 that speaks to windows, and what's described there is it raises the point of having the windows, just the windows that are facing the link road, acoustically glazed windows. Is that going to come into conditions? And can you just tell me a bit more about what would the choice of acoustically glazed windows be rather than double glazed windows? Which is better? And are there issues of cost related to this? I'm just trying to find out on condition 5 whether you'll nail this down with the applicant, that you get the windows that are the most appropriate for people who've got to live over what sounds like a busy road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. With regards to the required acoustically glazed windows, that would actually be a requirement of building regulations, and that's why that hasn't been carried forward into the standard planning condition that we've requested for further details of doors and windows. From my understanding, acoustically glazed windows are pretty much similar to double glazed windows. It's just, I presume it's just a different standard. I think also as part of the building regulations that they need to look at alternative ventilation. So should the residents wish that do face the Spine Road, that there is alternative ventilation into those rooms. Again, that would be covered by building regulations rather than planning, so that would be requirements at the building regulation stage. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Sherrington, please.
Thank you, Chair. There's 3 parts to what I'm going to ask about. Number 1 part is, have we definitely nailed the adequacy of recycling and waste regarding these apartments? Because I know that we've had we've had quite a lot of problems over the years with apartments, with not having adequate facilities. The number two is, I might have missed it, and if I have, I'm very, very sorry, but how many electric points for cars has been put there on the houses and for the apartments? And the third thing is that goes to item 73 in the order papers, is the regarding the bats situation and the swifts and the house martins. It seems like this is the new sort of eco-y thing, and seems to come up on other planning applications. I do have huge problems with this. Being somebody who's actually had house martins nesting at the side of my house on my actual building, and swifts nesting at the side of it, and also having bats in the garden, not in the belfry, in the garden. I do think that this needs to be thought through a little bit better, rather than having just your eco warriors who probably have never been in this situation saying what they would like to see. Because quite simply, if you put some kind of a box up for house martins, well, they might use it the first time, but I can assure you the following year they will come back with their family. And when they all come back, because they all see this as home, it won't be big enough. So they'll all build little houses all the way around your house. And it's not exactly ideal because it makes a lot of mess. It's wonderful to see, you know, them building this out of the way that they do it. It's wonderful, but not on the side of your house. And I'm not against wildlife here, because I have outbuildings that are full of birds' nests. So I don't have a problem with life, but I think we have to be more realistic than saying to people who move into these particular properties, you will have swift and house martin boxes on the side of your house. And then the other thing with the bats, well, the bats will probably use the bat box for the first time, and then after that they'll sort of make their way through some little hole into your attic, and then you finish up that you've got a hole of bats all in your attic that, by the way, you can't get rid of them because they're protected species. So I think we have to be a bit careful here, and I do think if we're going to actually suffice the eco warriors, I think we have to look at where we actually put these things. I think that they need to go on the side of trees, and there needs to be more towards the water and things like that, because that's what they need, and their food and so on. It's not on the side of houses. So I think we need to be a bit careful with this. So can I just ask, Helen, is this our new eco-y thing? And if it is the case, can we get the other bits done first and then think about this eco thing, and think about where it goes, and talk to people who've been in that experience and know more about it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just try and pick up on those 3 points then. The first point I noted is the querying about the adequacy of the proposed facilities for the apartments. Condition 8 of the suggested conditions actually requests further details. You'll note within the proposed site plan that it does show the 2 refuse areas to the front of the apartment buildings. However, we are requesting further details to ensure that those meet our policy requirements, so there's sufficient room to accommodate the number of bins that we would need for the apartments. Second question was regarding the electric charging points within the car park for the apartment buildings. Yes, that is a very good point, and I would suggest that should councillors recommend, approve this permission today, that we add another condition for details of those charging points within the car park, because yes, I do agree that those apartments should be have some electric charging point provision for them. And lastly, with regards to bats and nesting birds accommodation, we haven't actually at this point in time approved those are going to be. The applicant has suggested that they'd be suitable on the sides of the buildings. However, there is a condition attached to the outline permission which would need to be satisfied prior to commencement of development for details of where those are going. So yes, there's potentially a chance for those to be put on the trees rather than on the buildings, or maybe a variety of options. I think you've also asked about consulting people before those plans are approved for the bats and the bird boxes. We do, as a matter of process, consult both our wildlife liaison officer within the Green Space Department and also with Greater Manchester Ecology Unit as to the appropriateness of any alternative accommodation for bats and nesting birds. So we would be consulting them before we did approve anything. Okay, thanks. I hope that answered the question.
Can I just come back, Chair?
Yes.
All it is that I just want you to take on board what I'm saying about from experience, because some of these people who are in these particular positions who will make final decisions have never actually had swifts nesting on the side of their house, and they have never had bats in the garden. So I do think that you need to have people who have been there and know exactly what it is, bought the t-shirts, know what they're doing. And so therefore, because what worries me is to actually plonk this onto people who have not got any interest in it whatsoever. It doesn't actually start interest within these people. The best way to create interest is if they can see things going on in trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrington. Your point. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Helen mentioned the planning application. The full planning application for the wider site was actually a long time ago, and the section 106 was a little bit complicated. I think the idea was it would be shared across all the developers in terms of their commitments. But the question is, did we actually agree that all the social housing would actually come together on one site? I can't remember that, whether we actually stipulated that.
Thank you, Councillor. No, it wasn't stipulated that all the social housing was to be on one particular site. The sector actually stipulated that there'd be 7.5% of all of the dwellings were to be affordable across the site as a whole. So even if we do approve this application for 100% affordable housing within this particular site, there's still actually requirements for 7.5% of affordable housing within all the other bits of the site. So that's still there.
Right, wonderful, thank you.
No further questions. The item is open for debate. To turn off cameras.
Oh, sorry.
I wasn't naming Councillor Sharrington. Matter is open for debate. Councillor Wright, it's in your ward. Do you want to speak on the matter?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Chair. Just for the red lights. Thank you. I'm in support of affordable housing in Horwich, as a lot of the younger generation are getting priced out and having to leave leave the town. And I am, in principle, in favour of this application, but I do feel that these apartments are in the wrong place. And obviously, with delaying this further, will we see these apartments built quite soon? So it's we need to get them up and going as soon as we can. But my concern is with promises which have been made from Blue Mantle in the past about what they're going to do, and especially with affordable housing. We saw Bellway Homes. I know it's a different application, but we saw Bellway Homes, which is the least contaminated site, getting away with that obligation and not having to build any affordable housing. So a point brought up by Mr. Stuart Whittle about the relocation of the heritage core, parts of the heritage core. Do we trust Blue Mantle and the developers to go ahead with it? And it would be agreeable if there was some sort of legal agreement that could be made from Blue Mantle that this proposed development of a different place for parts of the heritage core could go ahead. So I would be interested to hear what the other councillors will say on this. Thank you.
Remind members that we are covered by the overall 106 required services within the overall site, and that is a catch-all that provides safeguard. And also, I did check the history earlier this week. The school, which was originally envisaged on this site, the decision of council, and I think this committee ultimately, that the school would not be located within this site, and indeed any funds were redirected to the rebuilding of Chorley Road County Primary School 3, 4, 5 years ago, whenever that was. And I don't think we should lose sight of that fact. Councillor Peel, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Chair. I listened with great interest to what Councillor Wright said, and was just left baffled by what can only be described as an incoherent an analysis of this application. He didn't even come to a conclusion, so he wanted to know what other councillors think. As a ward councillor for this area, he should be aware of the massive strategic importance, not just of this site to Horwich, the ward he represents, but also to the borough as a whole. This is a massively important site for the borough, and alongside Bolton Town Centre takes up the bulk of the government required housing requirements for this borough. And I remind members, I've said this many times in the past, we cannot have it both ways. If we start to resist in whatever manner members choose to resist strategic allocated housing sites like this, then on your heads be it when your green belt gets gobbled up, which it surely will. It surely will. We already know that this is how the planning system works. There has to be allocated housing sites to deliver our obligations, and this is one of them, a massively important one. So that's the starting point for this. And I asked some questions to the officers and to the representatives of Blue Mantle in terms of the guarantee that what has been outlined in the what has been decided in the outline application would actually be delivered in the future. And I'm satisfied that the answer I received from our planning officer is adequate, in that if applications come through in the future for the other sections of this site that renege against what has been agreed, with Blue Mantle and other partners, then it's quite simple. Those applications would be refused. So it isn't about, with the greatest respect to Councillor Wright, it isn't about trust. And I think he said he finds it hard to trust Blue Mantle. It's not. That's not the case. This is about planning process and how we deal with what is a very, very complicated overall application. This is just one small part of it. I actually like the points made by the applicant in terms of why shouldn't the affordable housing element be at the centre of the sites? Why shouldn't it take pride of place in terms of those future amenities, green space, community facilities, etc., will be delivered in the future? And I found that comment very refreshing because other developers may well be tempted to put affordable housing elements on the fringes of the site, away from other houses that are open for sale on the market. So I actually found that quite a refreshing comment and appreciated the fact that the affordable housing element, 116 houses, is being taken very seriously as a part of this wider application. I'm less sure about whether or not we have satisfied, as much as we could possibly do, the real benefit of creating a single sustainable community on site. As I said, that could potentially limit car journeys to a minimum. I appreciate that would also include quite a lot of employment on site, and that's not going to happen. But I do. My only downside for this application is my only downside, sorry, for the wider planning brief. It's not particularly this application, is it? Is that I think those enhanced community facilities and the real exploration about a primary school on site, I think that could have been had a lot more attention given it over the years. But potentially we are where we are. But I also take heart from what the Blue Mantle representative said about you know, there is still opportunity to consult and still opportunity for these types of comments to come in. There's still an opportunity from the council who is, again, you know, let's not forget, a major key partner in this, to influence the broader master plan to make this community of up to 6,000 people as sustainable as possible. So I would ask that Councillor Walsh, as our chairman, take that back to Councillor Cox and to the officers. Other than that, it's I can only go back to what I said at the beginning. It is an incredibly important piece of the overall obligations of Bolton's housing requirements, and I think my only wish is I've watched this progress in stops and starts over many years, and I think people want to see the work starting. We want to see the project being undertaken at speed, because the longer it delays and the longer we don't get these houses delivered in Bolton, the more at risk from predatory developers is our green belt in that same vicinity of the Bolton Borough. I'm very happy to move the application, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. Well, I bring Councillor Sherrington in. I'm happy to second the application. I will speak in more detail shortly, but I'm happy to second it. It is a key part of the housing supply in this borough. And it's important, therefore, that we recognise it's a brownfield site that saves development on greenfield land, and we must remember that. Councillor Sherrington.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to second it, but you've already jumped the gun and seconded it, which is fine. We're going in the right direction. I would just like to say that I do actually think that the young people who are wanting houses in the Orwich area have been waiting long enough. I do think when you look at the fact that the majority now of people are over 35 before they actually leave home to actually have their own home, it's quite quite concerning, really, because it's finishing up that we're going to have people who are older and older who are actually going to have families. So I do think that we do need to have these houses up and running as soon as possible. And also Councillor Wright did agree with that, because he was saying that, you know, we do need more houses in Norwich. Here we go. This is the one place that we can actually do it, and therefore keep the prices at a level that people can afford. So as long as we can actually put these car points in there, and also on top of that, if we can get the eco warriors to look at things in a different way regarding expectations from other people, I think that this is a very, very good plan, and it's got my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sherrington. Councillor Howarth, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just want to go back to the suggestion that I'd like to take up on trees. I think thinking about the design and the diagram that we've had, I think the apartment blocks, the 4-storey, with more of the red brick facing into the housing area and then a little bit less red brick on the side that faces the link road, then the houses that have got a red brick, so it's all very pleasantly designed. I think it is enhanced by the tree planting. So the suggestion was that we make an ask for more mature trees, and also I wasn't able to write down the suggestion of type of tree, but certainly the suggestion was in condition 6 it would be a variety of tree. I've forgotten, not conifer. There was a suggestion that one of them would be something that would add green. The idea on this is to get green in early on, because I think that it is important that we get the best design that we can for this plot. And also, I know it's a separate condition area, but the point made by Councillor Sherrington, where she talked about thinking about putting boxes in the tree area. Don't just think about where the application papers tell us that they're going to use gable ends of homes and so on for these boxes. So that's just an added thing about the trees. I thought that was well explained, why one should do that as well, looking at the bats and bird boxes. So I'd be grateful if that could be taken up by officers. Thank you.
Councillor Howard. There are no other speakers. So in summary, it's been proposed and seconded that this application be approved. Comments that we need to include, please, for officers, are the adequate provision of vehicle charging points, details relating to birds and wildlife, and landscaping to include a variety of mature trees. I think that sums up the raised by members. Can I just invite Mr. Allen, please, to confirm?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to confirm that those, I think the conditions regarding landscaping and EV charging, obviously we can pick up, and obviously I think has been moved and seconded. In terms of the ecological conditions, Helen has explained that condition is on the outline permission. So I think what we as officers we would suggest is we'd put an informative on that in relation to the discharge of that condition, we would what the council's expectations would be. Kind of as Helen suggested, perhaps a mix, or careful consideration of the locations of bats and bird boxes to include trees and other appropriate locations. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. With those points of clarification, can we therefore take the vote? Members are voting for or against this application. Mrs. Bailey, please.
Chair, can I just confirm that we're delegating this to the director for approval with the conditions
Indeed.
mentioned? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'll go to the vote now. Councillor Ayub.
For.
Councillor Connor.
For.
Councillor Darvish.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Councillor Howard.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor Hornby.
For.
Councillor Mistry.
For.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Peel.
For.
Councillor Radcliffe.
For.
Councillor Sanders.
For.
Councillor Sherrington.
For.
Councillor Walsh. Councillor Wright.
For.
That's approved, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. That application to officers. Can we therefore come to, I thank Mr Whittle and Mr Caldwell, please, for their attendance on that item. Can we move then to item 6 on the agenda, which are planning appeal decisions? And we have a report from the director with one which was refused on delegated power and dismissed on appeal. Thank officers for that. That brings us to the end of the agenda. Ayub indicated he wished to speak. Councillor Ayub?
Oh, sorry, Chair. Chairman, this is the last meeting of this municipal year. I want to thank you on behalf of members for conducting the planning meetings in professionally and orderly manner. It's been a difficult year as all meetings were held virtually. We had some connection problem, but overall you managed it very well. Well done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you, Councillor Ayub. And
Thank you, Chair.
can I thank perseverance and during the year. It has not been the easiest way in which to conduct meetings. The board have been extremely helpful, and I want to place on record particularly my thanks to the officers who've enabled us to conduct meetings in this way, not just the planning officers, but officers from the council's legal department and committee administration, and the technical team from the Albert Halls. So thank you very much indeed to everyone. I look forward to resuming normal business, as one might say, which is probably going to be the case. I understand from the 7th of May, meetings become actual rather than virtual, and we look forward to those meetings. It may be there are some members of this committee who may not be with us next municipal year. I want to thank all members for your support and during this current year, and on that basis, I will declare it closed.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.